Well, welcome YouTube. This is Scott. It's been a while since I've been on the YouTubes. Life has been rough, and down in southeast Louisiana, southwest Mississippi, this summer has been brutal. We've been burning record heat days down here. So it is October 7th, and we're getting a cool front this weekend, so I'm out in the Homochitto National Forest. We're going to do a wild camp this weekend. Mississippi Forestry Commission has a burn ban for all of South Mississippi, so no campfires. That's going to be different. I got some string lights that I'm going to try to put up for the evening to kind of have some ambiance instead of just sitting with a bunch of candles, Yuko candles. So we'll have some lights to try out. I'm going to try to do a series. I recently completed 20 unestablished wild camping sites in the Homochitto National Forest. It's taken quite a while, but we are at what I call number 4 wild camp, Strong Creek Wild Camp. So it's the first time I'm going to be camping here. We're going to show some, I actually have my website where it's kind of like I guess a documentation database of all my wild camps. So 1 through 20. There's a page for each wild camp. It kind of goes through as a 360 image of the actual site where you camp. There's like a parking point. There is the wild camp center point. There's a starting point to where you would like go from your parking point to the starting point, and then starting point to your wild camp point, with some information about the terrain, whether the hiking is easy, moderate, challenging. So through these next series of videos of showcasing all my wild camps in the Homochitto, I'll be throwing up some B-roll of the website and what you can actually see for these wild camps. You can also visit my website at wildcampsouth.com and hit the wild camp page, and you can check all that out. It's pretty cool. The wild camps that I try to find are not only adequate for camping shelters, whether you're using a tent, a hammock, or a tarp, but they're aesthetically pleasing. I choose wild camps that are in mature hardwood stands, usually close to a streamside management zone and close to a water source. So not only does the site actually provide flat area with very little to minimal understory, but there's a water source there available, and it's aesthetically pleasing, almost park-like. So that's kind of part of my own criteria. So enough of this jabbering. We'll do a little bit of video. We're fixing to go off trail in the truck to get down to our starting point. So hang with us. So we are on the gas line here, and We're at a starting point, which is a big pine tree with a bluebird box on it, as you can see right there. Now we're going to use our Onyx maps to navigate to, this is our start point, so we're going to start navigating into our wild camp point. So let's go. So we got about maybe 300 yards to walk from the gas line. Not far at all. For me, it's less about hiking and more about camping, R&R. Having activities to do at wild camp. Fire making, processing, gathering firewood, which we can't do because there is a burn ban in all of South Mississippi. So we're going to go get camp set up, establish camp, take a breather. We may go back to the truck. I have a small ice chest I'm going to bring back here tonight. Get some beverage. I have an external mic on this Insta360, so I'm testing that too to see how that works. Let's see if you can see this. I doubt you can with the glare. Remember what I told you about all of my wild camps are all about mature hardwoods with little to no understory. As you can see, it is beautiful in here. I mean, it's almost park-like. And down here in the deep south, I mean, this is still pretty much summer leaf on. It'll be a while before we have the first frost. But we're having our first cool front. Highs in the mid 70s, lows in the low 50s. So that's cool for us. Also have my flow rate stabilization on in the camera. I know it hogs up the battery, but I'd rather do that than to do it in post. Man, this is fun. Breezy today. I came here not last weekend, but the weekend before last, and it was in the mid 90s, humidity in the 80s, so it was pretty brutal. Alright, we're getting close to plot center. Wild camp plot center is what I call it. I got it up. It is up. Taking a break. Well, might as well show y'all though. Let's check it out. We got the Haven XL up. And it is beautiful in here. Got a little creek right here. This is a strong creek. It's called short little creek. We are in drought conditions, have been all summer. Water is extremely low. This is one of the creeks that actually still has some water in. It is flowing, barely, but it is flowing. Got the Haven tent right there, creekside. Going on a walkabout to show you around. Go on a walkabout, show you around. Not sure if y'all heard me. I just redirected the mic. Man, if it wasn't no burn ban, there is no short supply of wood everywhere. That is camp and my surroundings. Wild camp. Beautiful out here. Need to get some of the crew from the Low Miss Wild Camp Alliance to come out here. I'm hoping the video shows, you know, most of all my wild camp plot centers are, like I said, mature hardwoods, little to no understory, anywhere from 200 to 1,000 yards hike, which is nothing. This one was 350 to 400 from where I parked the truck. It would probably be 500, but I have 4x4 and I was able to take that that little old logging road down from where I was parked on the intro and came down to the gas line right away. So, but even if you parked up there, I mean, that's just another 80 to 100 yard walk downhill to the gas line, and then from the gas line 350 in. So awesome spot. It's nice and breezy. It's 3:00 p.m. I'm probably going to chill out here a little bit, get my sleeping bag and bedding and all ready to go. Probably take a walk back to the truck, get the little ice chest with some of my cold drink and toddy for later, and just get that ready so I don't have to walk in the dark. Make sure my flashlights are working and stuff. So we will be back. It is 5:31. We just went on a little walkabout, and I found some nice lightered pine. That I've been whittling on. Ah, it smells good. I'm going to bring that home. I'm going to get my lights set up for this evening and start thinking about dinner. I have an MRE. Alright, I have got MRE. Starting to get dark. 6:40. Listening to an Ole Miss Arkansas game on a Grundig emergency radio. But I got the Chili Mac MRE. We're gonna go to town with that. Goddamn jelly blew up in the pack, so everything is sticky. Everything completely sticky. So I'm gonna have to go down to the creek in a little while and wash my hands because it's terrible. This MRE did not get very hot at all. But we're gonna eat it because I'm hungry. I ate the crackers without the jelly because the jelly was blown up. Arkansas won the toss. I got the Haven here with some lighting going on. Alright, let's try this. It was very quiet. Birds were out singing before the sunset, but as the sunset came, you could hear a pin drop in here. Alright, not too warm, but let's try it. Lukewarm. It'll work though. So, as far as wild camping goes, who's wild camping in the deep south, in South Mississippi, Louisiana? You don't hear a lot of people wild camping. And I think it gets confused or not really known. Wild camping and dispersed camping out west is marketed big time. Their actual Department of Interior, Forest Service, and national parks who market dispersed camping. Here in the South, you've really got to dig on the internet to find any type of rules or regs or policies or what you can do here in the South. And really each national forest is different, but the majority of the time, dispersed camping or wild camping can stay 7 to 14 days in one spot and then you got to move. But the term wild camping is much more widespread and used across the pond in Europe, UK, Ireland, over there. You don't really hear people here in the deep south using the term wild camping. It's either occasionally it's the dispersed camping, or you hear people, they're calling it primitive camping. And when you disperse camp, when you disperse camp or wild camp, you are primitive camping. But you can primitive camp at a state campground that also has RV sites. You can primitive camp in a tent at a tent pad, whether it's cement pad, gravel pad, or just a flat, natural earth, grassy type site. My term for wild camping is dispersed or wild camping or dry camping at an unestablished site in a national forest at an unestablished campsite off trail with no man-made facilities at all, in which you have to self-sustain yourself. You carry in everything that you need to self-sustain while you camp, and you leave no trace and carry out everything when you're done. That's wild camping to me in the South. I don't understand why there's not more wild camping here in the South, especially in Louisiana and Mississippi. You see folks primitive camping or car camping here in the deep South, Mississippi, South Mississippi, Louisiana, but they're at primitive campgrounds within national forests. So that's really a car camp because you're driving up and you're camping at a primitive campground with no electric, no water, no sewer. So that's primitive camping. That's not necessarily wild camping. So, big thing that I like to do to find my wild camping sites, having everything at a wild campsite is needed for someone who wants to wild camp off trail, and the aesthetics of what the wilds look like is a big deal to me. So being a GIS analyst and working as a forester in the state of Louisiana, I use a lot of techniques, knowledge, skills, and abilities that I've taken from forestry, mapping, GIS work, and I combine all that. And I generally look for water sources and creeks first, streamside management zones, which is a forestry logging term, which means there's a federal law that loggers have to abide by. Um, they cannot cut the timber when they're doing a clear cut or select cut of timber. They cannot cut straight up to a creek, stream, river, water source due to the fact of erosion and environmental EPA standards and policies. That water's got to be able to disperse into the ground before it goes into the creeks and streams and rivers. So they leave a buffer of woodlands along the creeks. These buffers of woodlands, because they've never been cut, are mature hardwoods. And because they're close to creeks and streams and rivers, they're generally lowlands that are flat, which are perfect for wild camping sites. And you have a water source that's close by. So I use e-scouting through mapping primarily with Onyx Hunt maps because of all the layers that it gives you. I prefer commercial software that I work with, Esri, Arc Pro mapping, but not everybody can use that. And I like to try to educate folks, show them what I'm doing, how I do it, how I e-scout on the desktop. So I've used a ton of these online mapping cloud-based service. Oh, shit. I just sucked down a macaroni into my windpipe. Dear God, man. Water's coming out of my eyes. Holy shit. Ugh. Man, that was rough. Anyway, so I generally e-scout with many GIS, geographic layers, like hardwoods versus pine layers, water source layers, streamside management zone layers, elevation and contour layers, roads and trail system layers, and I start narrowing it down. I e-scout on the desktop with Onyx Hunt Maps or Onyx Maps Hunt. Not that I'm using it for hunting, but they have the best layers. There's a ton of layers in the Hunt app that's not actually available with Onyx Backcountry, which is geared for hikers and backpackers. So I utilize those layers, and anybody who uses Onyx, um, you can also import Google Earth KMLs and GPX waypoint files into Onyx maps, whether it's hunt or backcountry or off-road. So I will generally scout an area, start with the creeks, start with flat elevation contours. Um, I use aerial interpretation, so that's looking at the actual aerial imagery to determine how tall trees are, the canopy circumference, how big they are. You can generally tell uh, coniferous pine species versus deciduous hardwoods, especially if it's along a creek, because you have those streamside management zones with those buffers. The shadows are longer with taller hardwood trees, so you can look at that and measure shadows. Um, there's a ton of little uh, tips and tricks to utilize. And then once I've got a set of waypoints, I will make a plan to come out in the woods and go recon and scout those waypoints that I've e-scouted on the desktop. And 75 to 85% of the wild camp waypoints that I drop are right on the money. Like they are a good area of interest, wild camp area to actual camp in. So it's really fun too, because you're using these techniques, forestry techniques, geographic techniques, and you're coming out and you're validating those e-scouted waypoints, and you're once 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 you've e-scouted and you have a wild camp waypoint, you know, you need to also look and verify and see how you're going to get there as far as road and trail systems. So, you know, starts with interstate travel and directions, then it goes to county or parish, state highways and roads, and then you have unimproved back roads, Forest Service roads, gravel, dirt, and once I have that wild camp waypoint drop, then I start looking for a parking area, a safe parking area, and I'll drop that. A lot of times I've got to change it, but most of the time I get really close with my parking spots. And once you kind of have a parking spot and a wild camp spot to recon and scout, you can show up, you can park, you can edit your parking spot if it's not exactly what you dropped on the desktop Onyx Maps application. Uh, Fix that parking spot. Then once you have those 2 points, you're now looking for an off-trail access point. Like from that parking spot, how far do you have to walk from the parking spot to have an access point to get into the woods to actually start land navigating to this possible wild camp waypoint? And you just work it. It's a lot more intricate. I'm trying to plan some courses to put out there for folks on how I do this, but the actual process and workflow of e-scouting these wild campsites is just as fun as coming out and wild camping. I usually will. I lost the game. So, usually in the off season, late spring, summer, early fall is when I'm e-scouting on the desktop in the cloud, and then I'll make 1-day trips out to the area to validate, scout, recon. Good morning. This isn't one of those deals where like I had to get up and go get the camera and then get back in the shelter because I have an action cam. So it's the Insta361 RS, I think. Anyway, this is what I'm waking up to this morning. This is what it's like in the Haven. Alright, let's get up and start the day. Get something to eat. Alright, I'm up. I'm dressed. Why? The question is, I want to ask for the comments is, why don't more people in the South wild camp? This is basically free. It cost me my gas, my provisions to eat, and my time. That's it. Let me know what you think. I'm gonna get some breakfast and coffee going. We'll be right back. Ooh, that didn't take long. we are having the Peak Refuel biscuits and sausage gravy. Just heating me up some water. Get hot. Gonna do the stirry. Gonna make our coffee. Actually, I think this is the first time I'm doing Peak Refuel. It's always been this is big. Good. Zip this bad boy up. I usually sleep good in the Haven. Last night I did not sleep good. I think I blew the sleep pad up way too tight. Usually sleep on my sides, so it's like shoulders just kept going numb. And then like an idiot last night, it was so nice. I had a short sleeve shirt on. It was perfect. Perfect weather and temps, right? I didn't feel myself getting eat up or anything. This morning, I had bites all over, as usual. Trying something different with my coffee. I usually do real coffee all the time. This is Maxwell House French Vanilla Cafe Instant. I don't know if y'all have tried this before. We are going to try this. Let's see. Measure 2 rounded tablespoons into a mug, which is 12 fluid ounces about. Another thing, last night, I think when I was babbling going on with my rant, I think this action camera, this Insta360 RS, I don't think it does well with long form, or some setting is messed up, because I think in the middle of my rant, it just stopped. So, if it did, I apologize. I'm still learning this little camera. I usually take a bigger camera I have more control over. It's got long form video capabilities. I love the fact that I'm just using a small action cam and a selfie stick, right? Cuts down on weight, lighter to use, but there's some trade-offs. I usually take a digital SLR, multiple batteries, small tripod. It's all bigger, heavier. Anyway, let's get the coffee going, because I'm not sure if I can just leave this thing running without it cutting off. So, be right back. Now, this Peak Refuel biscuits and sausage gravy, it's awesome. But what I didn't realize is they put 2 mini freeze-dried biscuits in here. So they're like huge. Like in a mountain house, it's all chopped up. But Peak Refuel says 10 minutes, 10 ounces of water, and the biscuits are hard as a rock. So, word to the wise, if you get Peak Refuel. Next time I'm going to chop them up before I put the water in and make a crumble instead of having them whole, because it's like almost impossible to eat. Good though. And I always carry this this Cajun's Choice seasoning. Makes everything great. So, getting back to wild camping. Why don't more people do this? It's free. And I get not everybody, I guess, wants to lug everything out off the trail into a certain spot, right? But I think that's because they just don't know what's available and how easy it can be. So if you take the time to learn how to find an e-scout with some mapping techniques, that's all you really need to know how to do, and then come out, validate them, which you're just checking to make sure it's a really good spot, right? Then when you come, everything goes in your backpack, which you have to dial that in. I get that. It takes time, but you can do it. And once you've validated that spot, you know this spot is awesome. It's ready to go. It can accommodate a wild camping site for all your provisions, shelters, tent, backpack. Not only that, we're searching for aesthetically pleasing sites that you want to be in, that look great. So it's not like you're in some immature pine thicket with underbrush and briars coming up around you. Right. So these are wild camps that you want to spend time in, that nobody, few people have been to, hunters maybe. And then you pack in and enjoy yourself, free of charge. Now, goddamn gas is unbelievable. It's starting to go down. It's $2.99 here in Southeast Louisiana. I know that might be griping, especially for people out west, but it took a tank of gas, just like I said earlier. Everything packed up in your backpack. And I towed it in a small igloo ice chest. That's a big luxury. You don't need that. But I perfected this enough to know that the to and from distances from either your parking or your starting point to the wild camp site itself is really not that far. I put minimal things in the ice chest, like I had a few beers that I wanted, some apples, and 2, 3 um, Dr. Peppers, and minimal ice. It doesn't have to be filled up, right? So I got 2 little ice chests. One that carries all the ice in the truck, and then one I tote with me. So usually I make maybe 2 trips. So when I get here, I leave the ice chest, put on my backpack, get my camera gear, and I trek off trail to get to my wild camp. Set everything up. It's usually in the morning or the afternoon. I'll scout around, enjoy the spot, set up shelter and all that good stuff. And then later, before it gets dark, I just take a little trip back to the truck and walk in with the little ice chest. It's perfect. Works out great. 10 ounces of water was way too much. This is more like biscuits and sausage gravy soup. But it's awesome though. Like I said, I usually do the mountain house. I think there's anywhere from 12 to 15, depends on which meal. And I always put less. So for peak refuel, being my first one, I didn't know, so I just put the 10 in. I should have known to do less. Definitely got to chop up those brick hard biscuits and put them in as crumbles or something because they were hard to eat. Anyway, anytime y'all want to learn some things about this and how to do it, feel free to, in the comments, ask me questions. Visit the website, wildcampsouth.com. Or, you can email me if you go to the About section of my YouTube page, Wild Camp South. My email address is there. Email me, man. Man, gal. I would love, a big part of this is awareness. Because like I said, out west, wild camping or dispersed camping, it's marketed. It's all over the place. Everybody knows about it. But it's a different kind of wild camping. A lot of people associate wild camping out west with car camping and primitive camping at a backcountry unestablished site. So there's no provisions there. There's no restrooms, bathrooms, showers. I mean, out west they might have a fire ring if you're lucky, but most of the time they don't. Here, that's called car camping or primitive camping. True wild camping here in the South is you park someplace, you pack in mainly off trail. You may use unimproved roads and hiking trails to get to a certain part, but the whole reason to wild camp is to get to areas that you've never been to before, you've never seen before, that are beautiful places you want to recreate and stay, tell your friends about, and bring a group to, where nobody else can get to. You're not in a campground with camping pads, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, going to a campground if that's your thing. But if you want solitude, serenity, a place to recharge your batteries, peace, quiet, and like I checked the cell service coverage for all the major players, and it's nice to have that. But for Verizon, which I'm on, there is no cell service here. If you have AT&T, it's very low. You might have a chance of getting something, but I also checked that too. One of the ways, hey, if this thing dies in long form, I'll just start it back up. But one of the ways I'm helping bring awareness is to make what I call the Wild Camp Report. And that's for people here in the South. I will create you a report that's got everything you need to come out and wild camp without really knowing much. It includes site location, vehicle directions, parking, your starting point, your off-trail starting point, the lat long coordinates of your waypoints, which your main waypoints are going to be parking, starting point, and wild camp site. It's got the lat long coordinates. It's got the distances to and from. It's got all the rules and regs for the hosting lands that you're going to be on. Primarily here in the Deep South, it's always Forest Service land. So they'll have some information about those rules as well. It has numerous contact info. So contact info for forest rangers in the area, police, hospital. Uh, if you need to bug out in the middle of the night, I have the nearest hotel, motel, nearest restaurants. I even have the nearest mechanic or body shop and tow truck services in case your vehicle does not start up and they got to come back in the middle of nowhere. And with that report, if you've got to tell someone where you are in the middle of nowhere in the national forest, the report literally tells you where you are, so you can convey that to a tow truck or a mechanic or whoever's got to try to come get you. Which hunting seasons are going on, whether you should have hunter orange or not. It has attributes and information about the wild campsite, so what the species of trees, forest type, habitat, understory measurements, what your water source is, if it's prone to drought, how wide the water source is. Because here in the deep south, we have rivers, creeks, streams, and drainages, right? So there are a ton of these finger drainages, like spider webs, that come off our rivers, creeks, and streams. And on a map, it just generally shows it as being a blue line, river, creek, stream. You don't know how big that is, how wide that is, the distribution of water. So the main thing about the Wild Camp Report is that it's vetted, it's proven. Like, I've been here, I've done it, I know where it's at, it's good to go. It's not like it's just a guess. Wild campsite waypoint from e-scouting and mapping that I'm sending you just to try out, which I can do that if you want. But the whole idea is to get folks like you guys and gals to start doing this yourselves and coming out to these great places that I've been showing in these videos that are generally free of charge, and just, maybe we'll do a video on emotional benefits, psychological benefits of nature and outdoor stuff. I mean, I'm not huge into that, but this is kind of my cathedral of church. I don't go to church much. I should. I'm a Catholic, and when I come out here, I enjoy myself in the outdoors with doing all this good stuff, testing gear and eating and doing the coffee and all. But a big part of it is just getting right with the Lord, getting right with me, recharging myself, asking God, hey, let me know that, there's more to life than all this crazy shit we see on the TV that's going on. TV, social media, and it's like the world's going to shit. And it has been going to shit in other countries than the United States, but guess what? The shit has landed big time. We've always had shit, but it's really got its shit in the United States now. Almost scary. What do you guys and gals think about that? Is there any type of emotion or psychological mending that you do when you camp? And look, here's the big thing. I put out a poll a while back. A lot of people said going alone is a con. And it can be. Kind of scared. Or maybe not necessarily scared, but uncomfortable just being alone. A lot of people like that. They got to have other people around to do stuff. I say work on yourself and change that. Get comfortable with yourself. It's helped me in life. Alright, enough babbling. I hope y'all enjoyed that little deal. I may bring y'all back, but I'm going to finish up this watery biscuits and sausage gravy. Enjoy my coffee. Be right back. And like that, we are done. We're packed up. Leave no trace. The only thing we got backpack on, grab the ice chest, and we're good to go. So, I'm going to leave y'all with some parting shots of why wild camping is so closely related to solitude, serenity, and peace. It's important that we as humans in this fast-paced, crazy, insanity world that we live in recharge our batteries, and with a little preparation, planning, education on Southern Wild Camping, you too can have a free place to come just like this and like the out credits that we're going to roll right now. Beautiful. Enjoyed myself. I'd be staying another night, but got to get back. So this is Scott Owens for Wild Camp South, and hey, it's fall. It's time to get out there and recharge. Thanks for tuning in. Give us a thumbs up.